To be xenophobic,
yes.
nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on European
culture?
and Christian values and identity.
In this video, Michael Knowles discusses a debate that recently took place between Sam Seder and a large group of conservatives on the Jubilee channel. In the clip Michael Knowles reacts to, the topic of debate is the identity of America. With that, let's watch Michael Knowles enjoy watching Sam Seder make an ass out of himself.
A clip has gone viral from Jubilee's Surrounded show. This is the show that I was on a month ago. It's the show where one person surrounded by 20 or 25 people who disagree with him, and he's got to just debate them successfully. So it was me versus 20 or 25 LGBT LMNOP activists. That was an hour and 40 minutes. You can go watch it over at the Jubilee channel. This week's episode was with a left-wing political commentator named Sam Seder. And Sam Seder showed up and he was surrounded by, I guess, 20 or 25 conservatives. They were debating all sorts of questions, one of which was religious fundamentalism. We'll get to that in a moment. The other of which was immigration. And so he's sitting down next to this right-wing journalist, Sarah Stock, and they're just getting down to brass tacks on immigration. And Sam Seder cannot believe the things that she is saying. Take a listen.
What's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic,
yes.
nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian,
it's rooted in European identity.
White. So your argument is that
has been the dominant culture.
Just to be
and
clear,
we're not letting people assimilate to that. We're saying you should keep your culture, and this is why our culture is so divided.
Your argument is that Trump is good for those who want a dominant white European culture.
I mean, that is what America is. It's rooted in European identity and Christian values. That's what it has been. Would you really disagree with that? What is it then, if that's not the identity of America?
Well, I think the identity of America...
For the majority of time, America's been a country. You don't think that's been the identity?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been,
Okay, let's put a pause right here before he gets into what it means. I love how he's stalling. He doesn't know.
I mean, I agree with the girl 100%, and Sam Seder is ridiculous for not acknowledging that this is a country founded on Christian values. Sam's a proud atheist and thinks he knows better than everyone else, so he looks down on anything Christian. I wouldn't say we need a dominant white European Christian culture, or however they said it. And I'm not being a social justice warrior here, just white isn't how I describe the United States. We do have a culture that is rooted in Judeo-Christian values, and yes, a European culture. So the fact that Sam Seder is so flabbergasted by this isn't surprising to me. Without a culture that everyone buys into, what else makes a country a country? The girl was right in saying that there's a group of people that want everyone who comes here to make their highest priority holding on to the culture of the country that they came from. Well, clearly, if you're moving here, it's because things weren't working there. And there would be a lot less divisiveness if people adhered to the culture of the United States. And again, that's based in Judeo-Christian values and influenced heavily by Europe. That's why it's so important to shut the border down now, because we've done a real disservice and just fanned the flame of division in this country by letting so many people in illegally. Anyway, I want to hear what Sam has to say. Let's get back to the video.
Know how to respond to her. Well, no, actually, what's her argument? She's using a provocative slogan, no doubt, xenophobic nationalism. This is a scare phrase used by the left. And so she is provocatively throwing that phrase back at the left. But what's she saying? Xenophobic, meaning preferring one's own countrymen to foreigners, and nationalism, meaning preferring the nation to a kind of borderless liberal globalism. Well, that's what most American voters voted for in November. Not exactly in those terms, not in such sensationalist rhetoric, but that is what people voted for. And then Sam Seder says, well, hold on. You're telling me you think there's a dominant culture in America? She says, of course there's a dominant culture. There's a dominant culture in any polity. Of course there is. Culture is defined by something, and whatever it is defined by is the dominant aspect of the culture. Okay, well, you're telling me that America traditionally has been defined by European culture and Christianity? She says, yes. But could you disagree with that? Would anybody seriously disagree with that? In 1960, she says it has been, at least until very recently. In 1960, 93% of Americans were Christian. In 1960, just under 90% of Americans were white, so descended from Europeans. America, really, whatever view you take of the Mayflower, great cigar brand, and the American founding, the Revolutionary War and the 19th century up through the 20th century, can you really argue it didn't come from European values, European institutions? We were a British colony. What is your argument? The American Revolution was influenced by the European Enlightenment, for better and worse. The founding of America at Plymouth Colony was a separatist movement from England. America doesn't just exist in outer space or something like that. It's not just floating through the ether. It comes from...
If you like watching videos like this one, like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Historical movements developed by real people from real places. You might say, well, that's terrible. I hate Europe. Or you might say, that's terrible. I hate Christianity. I wish America weren't like that. You can make that argument. The left makes that argument all day long. But if you're this guy, if you're the liberal guy on this, you're really going to be confused by the idea that America comes from Europe and that the religion that has dominated in America has been Christianity? I mean, John Adams says the principles on which the revolution was won were the principles of Christianity. John Jay goes further. He says, thank God that we all descend from the same stock and that we all have the same religion and we all believe basically the same stuff. And you can find similar writings throughout many, many other founding fathers and framers of our Constitution. And you can just look at the demographics, religious, ethnic, national, all the rest. We didn't have mass migration of the sort that we're looking at today until the mid-1960s. So things start to change. But even still, most Americans are at least vaguely Christian. And I guess the majority of Americans are still white. So it's 60%, so it's obviously much lower than you. So I don't know, regardless of whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, how could this liberal guy be confused by that? Is he's really that ignorant of not just what his opponents believe, but of American history? Jubilee podcast surrounded lib Sam Seder versus conservative.
Every other country in the world has a ton of national pride. At least it seems that way to me when I see events that are including other countries, and none of them are as heterogeneous as the United States. So it's amazing with how many backgrounds and cultures that people come from in our country. It's amazing that we don't have 50 different countries right now instead of 50 different states. But we're tempting fate by allowing 10, 20, 25 plus million illegal immigrants into the country that have zero requirement to assimilate to our culture. No one's telling them to, and I'm just assuming that many of them don't have a desire to. We're really tempting fate by allowing that, and we're just begging for the country to be more divided than it's ever been and having a full-blown cultural crisis on our hands. I've thought about this. A lot of times I feel like the mainstream liberal news media paints quote-unquote Christian nationalists as odd, and we want to dominate our culture in the United States. Well, here's the thing. It's not odd. We already do dominate the culture. The history of our country is rooted in Christian nationalism. So it's not as weird as people like Joy Reid would have you believe. Now, those that want to mold it like Sam Seder into what their ideal utopia is for a country, they're the odd ones because they're the ones trying to subvert everything that's made the U.S. a country. Anyway, let's wrap up the video.
Sarah Stock, keep going.
The identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s. Even then, even we had this idea of a melting pot literally means assimilation too. It means melting. It means you're assimilating to the dominant culture. Is that not what melting means?
No.
Okay, so he says, no, it's a melting pot. And she says, yeah, that's how we view it since the 1960s. It goes back a little earlier. The term melting pot comes from a play by a playwright named Israel Zangwill in 1908. And curiously, Teddy Roosevelt went to see this play and loved it so much. He said, Mr. Zangwill, this is a great play. I love this play. And the notion of America being this melting together of different identities goes back earlier than 1908. So it had been building for some time. But then she hits the real point there, which is, well, hold on. A melting pot means assimilation. A melting pot is not a salad bowl, for instance. It's not that you keep your distinct identities, the tomatoes over here and the cucumbers over here and the lettuces over here. The melting pot means you all melt together. And
that is such a great way to describe that term melting pot and give you like a visual frame of reference, because the left loves to use that term. So it's nice to have something to come back with, because they assume melting pot just means anyone can come here who wants to and do whatever you want to do. No rules here. Well, right. A melting pot, if you pour multiple things into a melting pot, they blend together, right? They assimilate. And then Michael's definition of the opposite of that is, right, like a salad with each ingredient kind of cordoned off from one another. It's a really good description, but we want to hear from you. What do you all think about Sam Seder's debate and Michael Knowles' comments on it? And do you agree with Michael Knowles or Sam Seder as far as their vision of the identity of America? Let us know in the comment. Anyway, as always, really appreciate you watching, and we will see you on the next one.